One of the great attributes that Gila had was that she was able to see people not superficially as we or many of us normally do, but she was able to look at people and appreciate what they had to bring to the table. That every single soul is special. Every single person has outstanding qualities or attributes that they can share with others. And therefore, when she looked at someone, she was able to see beyond what we would see superficially, and she could see, so to speak, their potential, what they could be, that every person is holy, that every person has that which with to contribute to this world and to the other people around them as well. I believe that this is one of the reasons why Gila loved so much babysitting, looking after children. At family affairs, very often she could be found to be the leader of the little children. She would play games with them, and she would busy their time, and she would entertain them. And I think one of the reasons why is because Gila was able to look at a child, to see their innocence, but not only their innocence, their tmimut, but also to see in them little people, little tykes, who would translate into a future, would translate into opportunities, a clean slate, so to speak, tableau russo, that could be written into a script that had wondrous potential to develop themselves into a future and to contribute to the world around us. That was one of Gila's greatest attributes. One of the greatest tragedies with regards to Gila's, certainly her last days, was that she was not able to do so, to see potential with regards to her own self. With regards to her own self, she had a hard time seeing a future, believing in her own potential, subscribing to an investment and earnestness that would allow her to bring things to fruition for her own future, which never took place. And for that reason, as you all know, she died by suicide and took her life because she was unable to embrace that quality with regards to her own individual. And this is why I very often explain that when a person dies, certainly with regards to our own personal experience and Gila, it is not only the tragedy of the person who is lost, but it really is the potential of the person who is no longer. No longer could that person aspire to dreams. No longer can that person actualize thoughts, motions, ideas, notions that they might have had. That no longer will take place. And that itself is tragic. I think that herein lies the equation and what I would call the formula for failure with regards to this week's Parsha. The Parsha in Shlach tells us of the infamous sin of the various leaders of Am Yisrael, the Nisi'ei Roshei Bnei Yisrael, the leaders of every shevet, every tribe, who are sent by Moshe on a mission, essentially really to scout out the land of Canaan, the land of Eretz Yisrael. After all, they're going into conquest, to conquer that land. It'd be foolish to send them in without scouting the area, without assessing the landscape, without developing some kind of strategic or some kind of tactic in order to be able to do so. And sure enough, the Torah attests to the fact that these were outstanding men, exceptional men who were sent. Kulam anashim Roshei Bnei Yisrael Hema. They were outstanding qualities. They had outstanding leadership attributes. They were the leaders of Bnei Yisrael. When Moshe sends them, there is a very big machloket, a big argument that ensues with regards to where exactly did they go wrong? What exactly did they do wrong when they came back to report to Moshe, Aaron, and Bnei Israel? And there are very many different interpretations, which I'm not going to go into now. But I'd like to offer the following insight. Perhaps the problem was that when Moshe sent them, he very succinctly says to them as follows. He says, Ureitem et haaretz mahi. What does it mean to see the land mahi? Which is what he tells them to do. Mahi is an expectation that Moshe has of these outstanding people. He doesn't want them to look at Eretz Yisrael b'lashon hoveh, in the present tense. He wants them to see Uri'item et haaretz mahi, what the land can be, how the land will look in the future, not what it is now, but what it can be tomorrow. And therefore, what Moshe essentially is really asking from these spies, from these leaders, is to be visionaries, to adapt, to embrace a vision, to look at Eretz Yisrael not for what it is now, because surely if you look at it for what it is now, you'll inevitably find problems with it. And you'll be able to say, "Vanehi be'einenu kechagavim v'chein ha'inu be'eineihem." We were like grasshoppers to these giants who inhabited the land of Israel. Of course you'll find problems. Of course it'll be difficult for you to find favor in the land if you see it for now. Moshe doesn't want them to see it that way. He asks them, Uri'item et haaretz mahi. See Eretz Yisrael not for what it is presently, but in order to be someone who embraces this land, this particular portion of land, God's promised land, you have to be someone who can see it for tomorrow. You have to be someone who can envision it in the future. I've noticed that over the last few weeks with all that's been going on, COVID, and certainly in the United States, the horrible, tumultuous situation that's been followed by all the political things that have been going on in the United States, and all of the various outcries and racial slurs and all the behaviors and the chaotic behavior that's going on in many of the cities in the United States. There is much discussion by many rabbinic leaders, by Jewish leaders about Aliyah, coming to Eretz Yisrael. And I have to say that while some people have an outcry and say, yes, we should make Aliyah, yes, we should move to Israel, they don't do much about it. And the reason why is because Tachlit, when it comes down to it, it really comes down to one thing and one thing only. People who make Aliyah, people who move to Eretz Yisrael, do not see Eretz Yisrael today. They have the ability to see Eretz Yisrael in its potential. They have the ability to see the land of Israel tomorrow. And right now, if you look at Eretz Yisrael right now, sure, it's tough. If you see Eretz Yisrael in the present tense, sure, there are problems and obstructions and difficulties and hardships. But the question is, when you look at Israel, are you able to see what will come with tomorrow? The Chalutzim, the old pioneers who came to plant eucalyptus trees throughout Israel and soak up the swamps and make it a fertile land, they didn't see the land for now. If they did so, they would have been discouraged by malaria, other sicknesses, other difficulties, the Arabs, enemies surrounding them. But they didn't see Israel as such. They saw Israel mahi, what it can be. And therefore they invested in it with their sweat and their blood and tears, and were able to, sure enough, come out with a successful venture. And this is really the way we are expected to see the land of Israel. Anyone who wants to make Aliyah, anyone who comes to live in Israel, anyone who has the ability to do so, does not see Eretz Yisrael, Israel in its present tense. They see Israel in its future tense, for what it will be for their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, and to perpetuate the future of the Jewish nation. This past week, I was in correspondence with a friend of mine, a Reform rabbi, who's a Reform rabbi of a very large temple in Miami Beach. And he wrote to me, I think eventually we Jews here should consider a new wave of Aliyah. I've actually started working on a project on that issue. And he continues and he writes, I think our days in America will hang on, but eventually Aliyah will make more sense. And he continues, I'm writing a novel loosely based on my great-grandfather who helped bring the survivors from Europe to Palestine. And the second half of the book will be my grandson bringing the last Jews of America to Israel. And finally he concludes with the words, I think it is time that we make Aliyah, come to Israel, and it will make more sense, especially if Israel opens its arms wide to us. My dear friend, Our arms are wide open. We are ready to accept you all. We are ready to embrace you all. But before we open our arms, all of you need to open your eyes. Ureitem et haaretz mahi. You must embrace a vision. You must embrace a future that allows all of us to see potential in what we can be and what we can do as a nation in this great land. Shabbat Shalom.